Welcome to the Kentucky Atheist.
Cruising in my lane fast, call it high speed. I've been working hard, yeah, I've been working nightly. If you think you'll win, nah, unlikely. I be taking shots, yeah, cold-blooded, icy. Watching numbers grow is what I call sightseeing. In the front row, run it up when they hype me. The following grows, they know how to ignite me. Call me CEO, I've been running shit right, see. And I ain't playing games, I create my own.
All right. Hey, everybody, and thanks for waiting patiently today. My name's Joe. I'm the Kentucky Atheist. You're going to have to settle for a picture of me today. But today I got Mark Alsip with me, the author of the book Journey from Reason and fellow Kentucky resident. How you doing today, Mark?
Joe, I think you've got some audio problems there. You're on a constant loop of the introduction.
What? Is it still going?
Let me pause for a moment. I heard my words repeated back about 5 seconds after I said them. Let me just pause. Yeah, everything that I say gets repeated back. Everything that you say gets repeated back maybe 3 to 5 seconds after we finish the sentence. Sorry to bring the bad news, Joe.
Well, it wouldn't be anything unless we had audio issues after the show started, would it? Hold on one second. Let me see
I'm
what I can
telling
do.
you, from what you've been through with the flooding.
Are you still getting that? Are you still getting that, Mark? The chat people in chat said everything sounds fine.
I am still hearing the echo, although the people in the chat say things are okay, but
maybe try exiting out of the show and coming back in and seeing if that.
yes, let's try that.
Okay. All right. While Mark's doing that, everybody, thanks for waiting patiently. We had some family emergency stuff last night, and I ended up all night. And for those of you that talked to me this morning, I had still been up, is why I was up so early. But I ended up falling asleep at the wrong time and waking up for everything late. So sorry that you guys waited, and thank you to those of you that reached out to me. I was completely out and didn't hear any of it, though.
And you sound good, Joe. I think we might have it solved. I just exited and came back in. I was on backstage for a while, and maybe StreamYard just didn't like the fact I'd been there that long. But you sound great now.
Okay, awesome, good deal. All right, now Stephanie Frizzle says we both just froze. Are we froze or are we on here now? Can everybody hear and see both of us? Well, can you see Mark and hear me? Let's see. Everything is fine. Okay. All right, cool. All right, guys.
I think we're off and running.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for hanging around.
Yeah. All right. So, anyhow, how have you been, Mark? We did a show together a while back, and you've been around a few places and stuff. I've seen you and things, and everything been going good.
Doing pretty well. We fortunately avoided all the flooding that you had. We had a lot of rain here, but we don't have the mountains and valleys that you have. For those who don't know, Joe is off to the east of me with a little different terrain, but we had some wind damage, and thankfully everything's up and running fine. I've been staying busy. I've got a lot of people out there who have been very kind to invite me to come out and speak about the book, such as you're doing. So, meeting a lot of really cool people and some people with some great stuff to say. I've got ideas for a third book already, and the second one isn't even published.
Well, nothing wrong with that. I've flip flopped back and forth on like putting together a book about some of my experiences as they relate to like addiction and religion together, because there's a big crossover there for me. So, but it's just the thought of getting into it's more overwhelming than I'm ready to do right now.
I tell you, the writing is the fun part. The marketing and the advertising really is the most difficult part. And I rely especially on shows such as yours just to get the word out there, because social media right now is kind of squashing our message. They're squashing a lot of young, I should say young voices, outside voices. I am constantly going up against people with the name Kardashian, for views or anything that I might have to say, and it's just not easy to reach people. So this is an important medium.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. And there's the the atheists or the people who are even interested in hearing stories from that aren't pro-religion, I'll say,
Yeah.
are very limited. And for those of you that may not know what we're talking about here, I should have said this before, but Mark wrote a book, and that book is Journey to Reason: Walking Away from Young Earth Creationism and Religious Fundamentalism. And it's a really good book. Tells a lot of, tells Mark's story, obviously, and Mark being from Kentucky and stuff. When at least a large part of your life in Kentucky. I don't know how. I know you weren't really born here or whatever, but you've been living in Kentucky,
Most of it,
and
yeah.
you have that experience from multiple places, and it's just a really good story about how you dealt with those things and different parts of your life, and
Yeah.
so.
And that's what I'm trying to really do, is get the message out. People might say, who's Mark Alsip and why is his story important? He's just one person. Yeah, it's a good book. It's a good story. It's a quick read. It is a quick read. And I'm very happy to say that I've received mostly great reviews. There have been a few fundamentalist Christians who have not been happy that I didn't end the book coming to Jesus. But the point that I really want to get out to people is that my story is a lot more relevant, I think, in today's America, where we're shifting towards a theocracy. We have so much of a religious right, and there's one going off. if you'll pardon that in the background. Well, I'll tell you, today is just a day, right? But yeah, so that's why the book, I think, is relevant to other people, because a lot of us hopefully will be out voting in November. And one side is trying to push a really strict religious stuff. I know you've got it in the show, the title, Answers in Genesis Destroys Everything. And the book really points out why Answers in Genesis is more dangerous than a lot of people think. We tried to dismiss them perhaps as kind of, fringe. I don't want to say the word lunatics, but I will. No. But yeah, so that's basically the gist of the book. This is a message I think that needs to be heard, because there are a lot of people, as Joe can tell you, out in Kentucky who do believe in this young earth creationism. And sorry, I kind of went off on a rant there, didn't I?
No, that's great. You're beginning to fit in around here. You got a rant
Thank
every
you.
now and then.
Well, I did. Before I forget, there is one thing that I mentioned in our last show, and I have some interesting news. I think this will interest the audience out there. And this just happened a couple days ago. So I've been investigating the Kentucky Faith Trail, which is, if you're not familiar with it, if you're outside of Kentucky, a state-funded virtual trail of 11 Christian heritage sites, which include the Ark Encounter and Creation Museum. And I've been fighting an open records request battle with them since the beginning of the year. And just a few days ago, found out that the Attorney General for Kentucky granted that I was correct and that the Faith Trail was wrong. And there are about 8,000 and 9,000 documents hanging in the balance. This may go to litigation. They've got 2 more weeks to get back to me. But again, the reason this is significant is because in Kentucky, just like the Ark Encounter, our tax money, $300,000 worth, went towards this Faith Trail. So that's some exciting news. And I meant to have that, ready to launch at you at the moment we got on the air, but better late than never.
Yeah, that's great. That's I mean, it's great to hear that there are people working on stuff like that and getting their hands on that stuff. Because I mean, of all the things that people want to like this mysterious shadowy figure thing to, I think organized religion probably takes the cake.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of that in there. There's and especially when you get into like some of these bigger places like AIG, nobody has a clue about a lot that goes on with AIG because they don't have to tell you. Now, sure, for some of their, we know what goes on at the Ark and things. People talk about like how much money it made last year and all this because there is a public face to that. But
yeah,
I mean, for the most part, they don't have to tell you anything, and because of that, who knows if the things they are telling you are true? We know they lie about any number of things. I mean, just look at hoops that, look at the hoops that Ken jumped through to try and avoid paying 15% of the taxes everybody else pays.
Yeah, and what was I think they sold the property they're on, sold it, and then bought it back for like $1. And we have there's a really nice Facebook group, Kentuckians for Science Education. If you all have not checked it out, it's worth checking out. There are a lot of educators and there are a lot of people. It's not an overtly religious group, but it does care about real science education. And one of the gentlemen who runs the group, I won't say his name, but he's very well known in Kentucky. He's a very ardent supporter of science. He has been tracking the income and the entrance counts, the head counts for the Ark Encounter through open records requests since they opened. And it is obvious if you sit down with a spreadsheet, the Ark Encounter is not making enough money to survive. And when I say that, I mean, they just bought I think $30 million worth of Toyota plant or Toyota buildings somewhere outside of Cincinnati, northern Kentucky. They're not making that kind of money. So you've got to wonder, where's the money coming from? Well, they're a nonprofit. They don't have to declare any kind of outside funding. And they're doing a lot of other shady financial stuff you can talk about. But yeah, to come to the point, if they're lying to us about the age of the Earth, you start wondering about if they're lying to us about their bank accounts. And I would think possibly that's worth looking into. That's just me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there's enough there that it's.
Thank you, Pragmatic Crystal.
Just think. Yeah, yeah. PC's on it. She's great at putting that.
She is the bomb. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I depend a lot on her. Things that I don't even think about telling people. Oh, hey, you can find this here. She's on it before it even crosses my mind, and it's already in the chat.
Yeah, she had that up almost as soon as I mentioned it. So that's awesome. But yeah, it's a good group. Check them out.
One of the things that I've been and I've been trying to think about putting this in a video, but it's like one of those things you can't quantify because again, organized religion would never let you get your hands on such a thing, even if it existed. But it looks to me like as information becomes more readily available and people are looking into these things, that it may not have been true in the past, but it seems now that these people like Ken Ham and Kent Hovind, the creationists, that it seems like they're actually doing more damage to Christianity than they're helping these days.
Yes, sir.
And I think there's an aspect of that doesn't really, that people don't really think about a lot. Like it's seen so much, especially on YouTube. Like the atheist community is maybe not the enemy, but the person that they're always battling against and stuff. And that's not the case. Like
no.
Now
I'd be happy to leave them alone.
AIG has made enemies out of some of us and things like that. But they, it's people, as information's available. Yeah, sure, we have problems with education, and I'm not saying it's most people or anything like that. I'm just saying it's a non-zero number of people that are walking away because of this stuff. I mean,
it is. That's an excellent point. People will always ask me, why did you become a non-believer? I kind of even hate the word atheist because of all the negative connotations that were attached to it when I was growing up. It was the Madeleine O'Hare era when, she was Satan because she was an atheist. But I don't think that people who are, especially the evangelicals, the fundamentalists, the ones who are so rigid in their beliefs, they don't realize the damage they're doing. Why are people leaving the religion? Oh, it's video games, it's rock and roll, it's whatever. It's like, no, just turn around and ask somebody who's left. And it's because I found out you guys were not telling me the truth. I'm a little sharper than that. I could see I wasn't being told the truth. And when somebody tends not to tell me the truth, I tend to stop listening to them. And that is what, as to your point, I think a lot of people are doing with religion. I think Answers in Genesis is really hurting religion. So maybe in that way, we should just let them go. But I don't want my nieces or nephews indoctrinated like I was, because if you've read the book, folks, there's some trauma in there. The things they're doing to little kids, we just should not be putting up with.
Yeah, no, I don't think that, because there is this like unsaid part of it to where, for example, Kenneth Copeland won't, he'll tell you he doesn't believe what this church believes, or this young earth narrative thing. Well, a really good example that's been public, William Lane Craig has said that, he thinks the young earth creation stuff is stupid and that they're just, we could agree on some of his points towards that, but
I think so, yeah.
But he doesn't outright go on the offensive against them because they're still, for the cause. They're still believers, and they tend not to expose their own too often. If I would think, like, with some of the stuff that went on with the Catholic Church, you would think the church in general would be more outspoken on talking about what a horrible place it is. But
Yeah.
and there are those that are, but it's just like they're part of the in group at the same time, and
Yeah.
they know their numbers are declining.
We're all taught to give religion a special place. Religion should not be criticized. It's something that's so highly personal. We've placed it on this pedestal, and I don't see any problem in criticizing, for example, the Catholic Church's negligence. I think it's extreme negligence when it comes to child abuse, while at the same time recognizing good things that they do. I mean, I was very thrilled that they finally came out and said, "Oh yeah, it's okay to believe in evolution because evolution it's a scientific theory, but it's a fact." But people just don't want to criticize religion for when it's doing something wrong, and I think you've hinted at that we better just not. That's off limits. I think we need to stop doing that as a society, right? Let everything should be up for debate. If it's worthwhile, if it's truthful, then it's going to stand up to criticism, right?
Yeah, and I think that rather than this all plays more into the stuff of why people don't trust them these days, and they look into their claims and stuff. So in a way, they're helping walk themselves out, I guess. But they definitely need. There definitely still needs to be voices out there talking about the things they do and showing why those things aren't true. I mean, so many people have a basic understanding of evolution, but you get a smooth talker like a Kent Hovind in there who just that their job is to trick people. And I think it's, as much as I don't like Kent Hovind, and I don't like Kent Hovind,
or his son Eric. Yeah.
Yeah, or Eric.
Yeah, the water enters the Grand Canyon. I do an Eric Hovind impression, but keep going. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. The things like AIG is doing and stuff is so much more like insidious and awful. I mean, sure, Kent Hovind goes and lies to people, and he's got his little compound out there in Lenox, Alabama, and all that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, AIG actually employs people with expert degrees that lie about their field, that know the things they're not saying aren't true.
Yeah, they know better.
And
it's this argument from authority. If your listeners, I'm reading the comments as we go by. You've got an amazing audience, and I think these folks are really up on all. So I may be preaching to the choir here, but they do at AIG a lot of appeal to authority or argument for authority, where such and such has a degree, he or she's a PhD or a doctor, and therefore they are to be trusted. Instead of basing your argument on facts, you're basing on somebody's reputation. You have to remember at AIG, all of these people that you just mentioned who might have doctorates actually had to sign an employment agreement saying that if something contradicted their science, they would have to talk science out. That is part of the employment agreement, which means these people really aren't doing science at all. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. And to me, it's like, well, it's bad enough that they've built. AIG seems to want to appeal to children almost uniquely, because they build this theme park. I mean, the museum wasn't enough. They built the theme park thing, and it's all got like, I mean, it's all obviously made to be appealing to children. They're getting
Mm-hmm.
homeschooling, and so when you have them like directly attacking children, I find it really amazing that even though the state of Kentucky is religious, and I understand there's, government doesn't want to get into too many things to do with religious organizations and stuff. I mean, Scientology's still a thing,
Yeah.
but I just can't believe they actually let this go on. And it's it's one thing to have your religious beliefs and things, but it's another to then leverage all of that money towards putting it in children's textbooks and giving them, equivalent diplomas for doing homeschooling based on such.
Yeah, well, it's you've hit on probably the main reason that I wrote this book. They got to me as a child, as Sydney Raptor just said in the comments, that the level of their arguments and claims in young Earth creationism is kind of at that childhood level. But what they're doing is they are indoctrinating you when you're young, because as a rational grown up, all of us are going to go outside and see a rainbow in the sky and realize that anytime you have sunlight and something like a raindrop to cause refraction, you're going to get a rainbow. Now, to get me to not believe in that, to believe that rainbows didn't exist until after Noah's flood, my Sunday school teachers told the whole class, I was going to burn in hell forever. And I was threatened with hell more times than I can count. And there are several accounts in the book, but I mean, there are so many. At the same time, that this carrot and stick approach, kids cling to their parents, they cling to their loved ones. You want to think you're going to be with mom and dad forever. So, okay, so they invent heaven, and they'll tell the little children, look, you're going to go to heaven and be with them forever. But the thing is, they got to get to you when you're little, because as you get older and you start questioning things, as I did, there's you got that carrot and stick. They need something to pull back in, and that's how they pulled me back in. That's why I was a young Earth creationist for well over a decade. Pretty hardcore. I knew better, but I was afraid that I was going to burn if I said something different. And that's what they're doing to children at the Ark Encounter. They've put some shiny paint on it, merry-go-rounds, petting zoos, and everything. But if you look at the very first exhibit, the very first one, it's Satan telling you that if he can get you to believe that there's no flood, he can get you to believe anything in the Bible is false. And the very last exhibit is an exhibit telling us that we all deserve to die. So they're telling these children they deserve to die, and what they start leading up to it. You deserve to be judged, and what happens to you if you're judged and found not worthy? Now, try to corner them on that. They're not going to, put a hell display at the end of but that's what they're doing. They're terrorizing children. They're absolutely. I was terrorized, and a lot of people go through this trauma. Sorry, you hit on another one of my favorite topics there.
No, I want to hear what you have to. Everybody knows what I have to say about it.
Sometimes I get off on a little bit of. I don't know if your viewers remember me from last time, but I actually wasn't indoctrinated enough to become a youth preacher. And I was going off and teaching sermons, and I got used to, how to fake that little emotional rant. But I'm not faking it right now. I'm really upset that they're forcing this stuff on us, and they're making it worse. If you are a Kentuckian, you should be aware of what's called House Bill 2, which is coming up for vote in November. They, being fundamentalists, want to overturn part of our Constitution and make us pay for private religious education on taxpayer money. In the next book, have a whole section of a lot of work on, it's called Accelerated Christian Education, which is the curricula that these homeschoolers are using right now, what the private schools are doing right now. And they're forced to pay to indoctrinate children into religion. So, folks, if you're in Kentucky, get out and vote, please. November, this is very important. Yeah, they're after they go after the children because the children don't know better. That's yeah. Let's bring this back around to what you originally said, Joe. That's why they go after the children.
Right. So I think that especially bigger organizations like that have the ability to really pull all these numbers in and see why their numbers are decreasing and in what age group, and they realized, hey, adults, for adults who haven't already bought into what we're putting out there, they're not going to. They're not going to, for the most part, people aren't going to go their whole life not believing in a young Earth creationist narrative and then pick it up. So we have to get them when they're young, because here we can see, when we start on them when they're young, we're more likely to be able to carry them through. And
Yes.
I mean,
well, there are a lot of grown-ups today that are
business.
scared. When that you and Pragmatic Crystal, wow, she's really on the ball. She's got the HB2 legislation in the links there, folks. But yeah, if you get them while you're young, I notice fear in a lot of adults. I'm 61 years old, and I notice a lot of adults my age who are terrified. They won't say they're scared. They're sure they're going to go to heaven. And I ask them, well, what if you gave it up? Oh no, I would burn. I would burn forever. I don't want that to happen. So you put the fear in when they're young, and it stays there. And it's
Right.
amazing how deep it can get. If you're in it like I was for over a decade, there's some great books out there. Dr. Marlene Wanell wrote one. She's a psychiatrist who helps people deconstruct from religion. And people are taught as fundamentalists that they are not worth anything without God or Jesus. And it takes away any platform they might have to land on if they decide to leave the religion, right? Because you're worthless. You're nothing without that. So that's another reason to be afraid to leave. You're taught that as a child. So it's just really brainwashing.
Yeah. You definitely had some of the Southern Baptist teaching, huh?
Yes. Oh yeah. My church wouldn't name it. They said it's sinful to even church name. So they just said we're a Christian church, but they were very closely related to Southern Baptist, even to the point, if you're familiar with the religious history, the Southern Baptists had their split from modern day Baptists over the concept of slavery. The Southern Baptists believed, as the Bible, Exodus 25, verses 44 through 46, slavery is okay. Slavery is okay. Those are actually the words of God. I hope I said Leviticus there, because I'd be embarrassed if I didn't. But Southern Baptists actually split because they wanted to keep slavery. So there's some really strict fundamentalists out there, and they are dangerous. And I try to get the message out. There's a lot more of them than we would like to believe there are.
Yeah, for sure. There's and again, they have an incentive to keep all that kind of quiet. So it's hard to really get a good number on it. I
It
think
is.
that, and there's, I think that for something like AIG, and I know they have a new CEO and stuff, or at least he's trying to take over for AIG.
Yeah.
I don't know that Ken Ham really knows that what he's saying. I'm sure people have informed him that the things that he's doing is essentially just lying to children. But there's enough people in powerful positions that work there that know better. With degrees, when you have a biologist who says, I have a PhD in biology, and then says things like evolution is just this silly thing, it's not evolution, and all this, it's like, how do you get a PhD in biology and not understand how evolution is like the cornerstone of that? like you don't have, if and it's so often like, oh, you don't believe in evolution, but when you deny evolution or the geology of the earth or something, it's not just that scientific branch that you're denying. It ends up being whole branches of science that you have to just disregard.
Yeah.
And to me, for the people that have the information, I mean, I knew a lot less than I know now, and I don't know that much now. And when I
Yeah,
was
same here.
presented with it, it was easier for me to look at it and say, "Oh, wait a minute, that those two things can't be true. Which one is it?"
Yeah.
And
But the better educated you are, the more education you have on this, the better chance you have of coming up with a rational answer. And I always warn everybody, my field is computer science, which is more engineering. So I tell everybody flat out, I'm not like a biologist or someone who deals in the natural sciences. I did go back for pre-med, and I've studied natural sciences my whole life, but I feel like I know enough to make a rational decision, but what I know is so tiny compared to all these different experts, as you mentioned, in these different fields. And every single one of those fields, the experts, the people dedicate their whole life to studying one species, right? All of the evidence points to evolution being true and an old Earth being true. And I just can't understand why this matters to Answers in Genesis in the first place. So what if the Earth is 4.6 billion years old? So what? Why does that tear your religion apart? You're painting yourself into your own corner there, Ken Ham. You're doing this to yourself. I don't get
yeah,
it.
yeah, and I think that's why AIG may have never had the but prior to all the attention they got from Bill Nye and all that stuff, may have never had the intention of employing these experts to come and just combat what is accepted science. it's
Yeah,
uh, it's it's for someone. I always look at Georgia makes me so angry when she talks because she absolutely knows better. She knows. I know the things that she was taught, and she knows better than the things that she says. And it's
yeah,
I spent my whole life getting a biology degree. I get out of college. What am I going to do with this biology degree? And for her, it's not what she does with the degree. It's what she does because she has the degree, I guess. Uh, it's
yeah. It's really odd too, because I know a lot of religious people who don't fall for this young Earth creationist garbage. I happen to be married to a very spiritual person who identifies as a Christian, and she just breaks out laughing when I show her Answers in Genesis material. It's astonishing to someone who is highly educated, who is spiritual for their own reasons. Well, first of all, that anybody could believe that humans and dinosaurs walked together, that snakes could talk. I mean, come on, talking snakes. You, with your biology degree, know that is absolutely, completely impossible. It can't happen. But yet, there are people at Answers in Genesis who will tell you every word of that Bible is true. And by God, it says snakes talked and donkeys talked. So they did. And that's the end of it. God said of it, said it, next topic, right?
yeah, yeah. And I get that there's people that want to say, well, miracle, God can do anything, so it's a miracle. But once you actually start to look at things a little bit critically, just a little bit, like you realize that, oh, you have to do that like every other page. And
Yeah.
uh, it's just it doesn't make much sense. But that's I get indoctrination is a thing, and that you know again, you and I both were taught when we were young, just not that if you want to ask questions, there's a place for you, And if you want to, they teach you that, and then when you get older, the politically correct place to be is you don't talk about religion or politics. Here on the Kentucky Atheist, we talk about both, folks.
We do. And Robin, you're right. Snakes have no vocal cords. If you got points here, Joe, some to Robin for the correct biology and anatomy, physiology, because they don't, and how they make that sound. I'm loving the comments here. Thank you all for chiming in. But I'm sorry, Joe. I went off on a little tangent there.
No, man. That one of the best things about doing live streaming, and I mean, you don't have to be a live streamer, but it's the engagement with the community. So most of these people I know very well. Robin, does a show with me every week.
I've got to check that out.
Yeah, we do a political show on Wednesdays and Thursdays where we talk about what's going on in current politics and give kind of our perspective on it. And it's if people like that kind of thing, it's there. We obviously it obviously has some crossover with atheist activism right now, and because religion's so tied up into politics at the moment, we don't have to get into all that here. But we do a show where we go over what's going on and stuff. We covered the debate last week, and this week we're going to have to obviously go over parts of Trump's indictment and stuff, and
I'll have to check that out. Yeah, the new book that comes out in I think it's October 14th or 16th is political. I finally went political on this one because of Project 2025 and House Bill 2 and so forth. So, I do say that I would not criticize religion or politics, except that they keep swerving into my lane. I use the analogy of a big truck on the interstate. I'd be happy for them just to go stay over in their religious lane or political lane, but they keep swerving over and trying to run me off the road. So I think it's important that we all honk our horns.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing, right? That's that's why we have to keep talking about these things. And if religion wasn't or politics for that matter wasn't out there doing these things, then there would be no reason. I wouldn't. I'm rambling. So
no, you're okay. I just I got distracted. I know I told you this story, but I can tell it because I noticed Aaron Ra was mentioned in the comments, and it's funny. I told Joe that I ran into him accidentally at the American Atheist Convention in Philadelphia in April, and I embarrassed myself to death. I would love to meet him someday and apologize. I went running up, like a Swiftie. It's like, you're Aaron Ra. But he and Dillahunty and a lot of those guys are the people that I cut my skeptical teeth on, right? That's how I learned to talk about this stuff in public. But yeah, that was a squirrel moment for me. I just saw his name flash by on the right there and thought that might amuse some of your folks. He's a great guy, but do better than I did in respecting his privacy because I was up almost asking for an autograph.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you. Most of my audience knows I'm very much an Aaron Ra fanboy. When he came on the show, everybody had to say, "Now, Joe, you're not going to get on here and play fanboy, are you?"
I can do better. I really can do better. But it's just it was totally unexpected, and there were people that I knew who were there who are really well known in the community that we're in, and I wasn't shocked or surprised at all. But all of a sudden, somebody who you've watched do some really debates and he's walking. I almost ran into him in the lobby accidentally, and I was like, but yeah,
Yeah.
Aaron, if you're ever watching the show, I do apologize, and I'm not a weird person, I promise. But anyway, wow, Joe, did I take us off on a tangent there? How are we going to come back to some main
No,
line of thought
you're
here?
fine. Yeah, you're fine. It's great that these things, especially with these live streams, it's great that they just go where they go, because it it allows us to. I mean, everybody else has that jagged way of thinking too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But no, for real though, like it's nice because Aaron is Aaron's somebody who has contributed greatly to fighting against these things before many of us had
yes,
even left the religion.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
And yeah, I had both Aaron and Matt on in the same week, and
Oh, did you really? I am
uh,
so jealous.
now I tell you what, I was kind of I was, a little starstruck with both of them. I had obviously been, I was a bigger fan of Aaron, even though I, I make no, I take nothing away from Matt Dillahunty of what he does and all that. But Aaron spoke better to me, I guess, in a way I could understand better, and on subjects, especially getting into evolution and things that I really enjoyed a lot more, the science aspect of it rather than the intellectual, logical part of it. But
Yeah,
they both do great things for the community and stuff. It's just two different ways of doing it, and
yeah.
it's really a great way to show you why it takes all those different perspectives. You know?
I think it's like you said, they have different strengths, and uh, just my perspective, and I admire them both equally. I don't have a favorite, but Dillahunty will just immediately catch on to any logical fallacy that's thrown in front of him. You can see the light bulb come on in his head the moment his guest is halfway through the sentence. And you know what He's going to say, because he's going to give him the page on yourlogicalfallacyis.com. And Aaron will throw some wonderful science in there, some really good hard science, which I love. But yeah, both of them, and there are many others. I don't mean just center on those two, but yeah, I used to watch
Well,
the atheist show that Dillahunty ran out of Texas. I think it might still be on the air with some new hosts, but it's really
Atheist
interesting, the
Experience.
people that call in. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a great show. Great show.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I would say most of the audience here today is, if they don't still currently watch that show, they have a big foundation in it. That's one of the first things I watched on YouTube, as an atheist, that I found on YouTube that I could watch, that was like speaking my language at the time.
yeah.
And Matt and Aaron used to do that show together a lot, actually.
Did they really?
But
No, that was before my
oh
time, I
yeah,
think. Wow.
yeah, yeah. Aaron used to be on there with Matt quite often.
Well, I know
In
they were
fact,
down
that's
there
where I
in
found Aaron.
oh, is it? Is it? Okay. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
got a good buddy down in Texas who runs his own company. I won't name. I don't want to, do like violate advertising policies, but he has met both of them. They debate. I think Dillahunty's kind of walked away from the debating because they didn't tell him. They put him up against a flat earther or something, which was just ridiculous. But anyway, the folks who live in that area in Texas are really great about supporting the community and supporting those guys who are doing great work.
Yeah. Yeah. Robin's pointing out in the chat, we gave away copies of Dave Warnock's book and copies of Aaron's book, and we gave away one of the, or I don't know if we might have given, I think it was just one. We gave away one of the shirts, the embossed shirts that Matt wears whenever he came
Yeah.
on, and but yeah, talking
How
to
did you go
both of
about
those
doing the
guys.
giveaway, Joe? How did you get the books to people? Did you just mail them out from your location, or?
yeah. So we, there's, I have a thing that can randomly generate, like I can take people who are entered and put them in a wheel on this thing and spin it, and it'll just give me random names out of it. And then I
Yeah.
tell that person, hey, you want a book? You need to email me and give me your contact information if you want me to send it to you. And then we just ship them to them. Now, for the R and Raw one, we learned a little bit because the Dave Warnock books, Robin actually had those on hand and then shipped them to the people. For Aaron's books, I got their information and just ordered them off Amazon and sent them directly to them.
Okay.
So
I
yeah,
was going to say, if there's any interest, you can folks comment in the chat, or you could comment. I'd be happy to work up maybe like 5 copies if I can get them to you. If people would be interested in a free physical copy, I'd be happy to contribute. I would always ask people if they would be kind enough to leave a review on Amazon after it's over. That'd be great. But yeah, I'd be happy to kick in also, because that's just how we get the word out, right?
yeah, no, yeah, if you we'll give them. I try to make sure that they go to people who want to read them. I don't. That was kind of the tricky part of doing the book giveaways, because I wanted to make sure I didn't want to just say, oh, hey, you want a book, and it be somebody who wasn't interested in it anyway. And so,
Well, that's the
but
point.
yeah,
That's why, yeah, I've got a captive audience here in a way. I know that there are people who are interested in this. So I could get 5 physical copies. And if there are any audiobook fans out there, I believe I still have some free Audible download codes. Joe and I guess we can talk about this offline and figure out, what do we need or how we need to get stuff to you. But I'd be happy to
yeah,
chip some stuff in. It just,
sure,
like I said, just to work out. Sure.
yeah. Yeah, we can work something out. We'll and yeah, I would love to do that. We can absolutely do
Be happy
that.
to
The
participate. Yeah.
that's one of my things that I've really liked doing. Because I could have given away gift cards and whatever, and uh, but I felt like it was really good to give people the books of other folks that have studied these things, and things that really helped me to better understand a lot of this is reading various things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I would love to do that.
Yeah. Sure. Maybe just, I don't know, if you'd like, folks who are out there, let Joe know if you're interested, and we can try to get a count of what we need. And I will make it my mission to come up with it.
There you go, guys. If you're interested in a book, I see Rob, and I won't forget that one. But
Yeah.
the anybody that's interested in it, let me know, and either drop a comment in this video later when it's posted, or send me an email or something like that, or comment anywhere and tell me so I know. And we'll get a number of how many we need and stuff. And yeah, Robin wants a physical copy. She has a large library.
We can.
Robin's got a bunch of books, a bunch of
I'm
people.
building. I'm building one too. Happy to comply. And I was surprised how many physical copies would go when I've gone out the door so far. I thought for sure, because I'm a Kindle guy, that Kindle would be the way to go. But physical copies are selling at about the same rate as the electronic copies. And also, I lucked out and got the most amazing narrator in the world for my audiobook. He was on the channel earlier. I don't know if he's still here. I'm going to, if you don't mind me, give him a shout out to Robert Shaw from the Unshaw podcast. He has I would just tell an American, if you ever listen to a really good BBC science presenter, that is Robert Shaw. So these audiobooks are killer. They are killer, and everybody has loved them. So we do have some audio. Oh, I think Robert's still there. I hope he's not blushing. But yeah, I've got a few audiobook codes left. for the USA, and I think there might be a few for Great Britain. I don't know if we have any international people, but yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take up so much of the show on that, Joe, but yeah, if some folks would like some books, we can make that happen.
Yeah, no, you're fine, Mark. I'm glad. I see. Actually, I crossed paths with the Unshaw podcast, Robert Shaw, when I first started making YouTube videos. I had
Oh,
set up a
interesting.
Twitter account, and he had messaged me on Twitter, and I actually thought it was a bot at first because of the way he was saying it. But he was like, he was talking about, hey, I'm doing this podcast and this and that, and I was like, well, if you want to come on the show or whatever, and he's like, well, could you just spread, or kind of let people know, and a number of us in the community, I think Jimmy Tux was one that talked about it, and
Oh
but
yeah, yeah. I think
yeah, so
was he actually I think Jimmy Tuxedo, right? He was. Is that who you're talking about?
Jimmy Tux from the channel Tux TV.
Well, I call him Tuxedo, but I'm sure I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't help throwing that extra thing on there, but no, it's really interesting the way your show and Robert's shows fold together. I'm not surprised now that you guys met each other. He had a Young Earth Christianist on last week, and if you guys want some practice debunking Young Earth Creationism after we're done here, go check that one out, because this one, every trope that you've ever read on Answers in Genesis is out there. Isn't it amazing, Joe, how these people, AIG keeps going back to the same thing over and over, even though we've shown it to be false. You notice that same talking point every time.
yeah, they don't. Well, one of the things, like Mary Swatzer, they
Oh
have
yeah,
used Mary Swatzer's,
they have. Oh my God.
and she's raised hell with them and told to stop over. I mean, for years now, and they continue to use her as a source when talking about, oh, we found soft tissue in dinosaur bones. Like that whole lie about
Yeah,
all that, and she's told them why they were wrong and to stop, and has gotten mad and even threatened legal action in certain ways, I guess. But and they continue to still say the same exact line.
it's amazing. Your guests probably already know the story of Schweitzer, but just in review, she found some soft tissue, some small fragments of soft tissue in a T-Rex fossil, which supposedly never couldn't be done. And all of a sudden, because of this one example, instead of taking the scientific approach and saying, let's figure out how this could have possibly happened, because we have countless examples of fossils where they're completely calcified. This did not happen, right? But in this one case, they said, oh, that disproves everything. And Schweitzer herself is known to be a very devout Christian. And she's telling people, no, stop this. Stop piggybacking off my research. Stop trying to turn us into younger creationists, because she describes in great detail why she knows this find that she made is tens of millions of years old. And they just won't listen. They keep coming back with, oh, Mary Schweitzer found. Oh my God, it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not, Mary Swatzer isn't one of us evil atheists or anything. She's
No,
she's a believer,
she's
and
very much so. Yes.
yeah, but that, and this is an argument I got into with somebody on Twitter just yesterday, saying, well, they were listing all these famous scientists uh, that were Christians, and I was like, that's not the score you think it is. That actually speaks against your position,
Yeah.
because these are the ones that affirm that science is true, and or at least that these things are supported, and here you are trying to say that because they're scientists that means it's the
Yeah.
craziest thing. But believe it or not, people are able to like do their jobs and have a belief.
Yeah. Well, the thing that a couple of things they keep forgetting, because I hear that argument all the time, and as a matter of fact, I heard it on the podcast a couple days ago that Robert did. But a couple of things here. First of all, at the time, people didn't science was just becoming science. We haven't always had a scientific way of thinking, so it makes sense that these people probably had some religious beliefs when they started doing it. But what always gets me is that a lot of them, or many of them, were actually threatened by the church or burned alive. Galileo with his house arrest. These scientists had to be Christians or whatever was practiced in the area they were in. They had no choice. So I really think they're saying what they think they're saying, or when they say that, oh yeah, look at all the scientists who were Christians. That's very easily explained. So, and it's not the answer they want.
No, no, it doesn't help them. The but yeah, I mean, AIG has, and it all fits together when you actually look at it. So they have the AIG, what's it called, AIG newsletter thing that they do their own
Oh
little.
yeah, I subscribe to it.
But they have their own quote unquote journal entries that people submit. And it's of course people within their circle.
Of course, because no other
And
journal will take them.
but what they do is they'll say, well, this author here has been published over 300 times in scientific journals and all this stuff, and so you can believe what they say. But it turns out that they were published in their journal, which isn't really a journal either. They're published by them, and it's
Right.
AIG has published the same person 300 times.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Because nobody else will take their stuff. I mean, anybody. Well, not anybody can submit. Most you can submit, but there's a pretty high bar to get into a credible scientific journal. And when you're saying that you're going to discard evidence based on your faith, then you're probably disqualifying yourself from any serious publication opportunities, would be my guess.
Yeah, the I covered a video that I seen on Standing for Truth, and I can't remember the guy's name now. That was the one that they were calling an expert. But they were saying he was an expert in biology and human anatomy and all this stuff. And I was like, that's curious because I know that somebody who knows those things knows better, right? So
Yeah.
I went and looked, and he had a diploma mill PhD, and they had said he had been published over 600 times, and I was like, wonder where. And it was almost exclusively on AIG's creation thing, and and other things for like the creation ministries, and they, I mean, how dishonest do you have to be to do that? Like, they
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And that's why I say that. I say these people know what they're doing, and it's like it has this weird tie-in back to the televangelists I used to cover and stuff, where they like Kenneth Copeland knows he's lying to you. I mean, when believe me, when him and his wife get sick, they go to the doctor.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
they know they're lying. They just,
Mhm.
I guess they feel like it's okay to lie if you're bringing people to Jesus and such. I guess.
That has been expressed to me that and there's actually an interesting tangent there in Islam. I forget which part of the Quran says that it's okay to be dishonest under certain conditions. I don't remember what they are, so I won't try to state them. But yeah, if it's basically the message from both religions is if you're doing good by telling a lie, then it's okay. We're all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They Kenneth Copeland. And I get, like, in the case of Kenneth Copeland, there's definitely a financial incentive going on there, but
Oh yeah.
the just the lies that they know they're telling. And once because for me, the thing that made it all fall apart was once I discovered a couple things were lies, I wasn't sure what was true and what was a lie anymore. So I started looking, and then it all started to fall apart, right? And
It crumbled. Yeah.
yeah, and I know that these people, many of them are much smarter than me in a lot of areas, and are capable of taking that critical look at their own position, especially the
Yeah.
ones that about science. Because I mean, what is science if not exactly doing that?
Well, a really good way, self-education way of using this to your advantage. There's, for example, a man, Steve Austin, not the $6 million man. If you guys are as old as I am, remember that TV show. But Steve
Yeah,
Austin did a lot
not the
of
wrestler
dishonest.
either, guys.
Not the wrestler either. No, I mean I guess it's good or bad to have that name, but he's pulled off some really dishonest stuff, and he is, I believe, a professional geologist. But he tried to use Mount St.
Yeah,
Helens to disprove radiometric dating, and I will be the first to tell you I don't have the education of a professional geologist or a physicist. But I did look at his arguments, and I did go out, and I do know how to read physics books. I know how to read geology books, and found out just how dishonest Steve Austin really was, just using his own words, because he's got to put some argument out there, right? And basically what he was ended up doing, long story short, was something you don't do with radiometric dating, which is just pick up a rock out of context on the side of the road and chunk it into a machine and get a little line back that says pregnant, not pregnant, COVID, not COVID. It doesn't work that way. And essentially,
yeah,
that's
right.
what this man tried to do. So, could I sit there and argue the makeup of, I don't know, certain minerals with the man? Probably not. Could I debunk his young Earth creationism? Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
just
he's in a small group with, like, he reminds me. Steve Austin is on par with, like, Andrew Stanley. Uh, but yeah, Steve Austin. He actually went out of his way to lie about stuff too. Like,
yeah,
there would be something about there was these big cracks that showed what he was saying wasn't true, and he purposely obscured that on camera so that
ooh,
he could talk about the other part. There's a story about it. I don't remember the exact thing, but yeah, Steve Austin. He's one of their paid liars.
he's very prolific, and
Yeah,
again, you'll hear the argument from authority that, oh, Steve Austin said it. He's geologist. And I know science isn't run by consensus; it's not run by vote. Whoever votes for the most, uh, whoever votes for the most common age of a rock isn't going to make that rock that age. But Steve Austin just completely bucks the trend and disagrees with
yeah,
everything that modern science tells us. And I don't care if it's the other geologists that say he's lying, as much as I can look at the evidence and say that he's lying. Yeah, some people are saying they know about Steve Austin and Mount St.
he
Helens. We've
did.
got a very knowledgeable
He,
crowd here tonight. Thank you, guys.
he's he's famous for the Mount St. Helens thing, trying to date rocks from a recent eruption, and the more commonly with AIG, he did the whole Grand Canyon thing where he went
Hey,
and
yeah, Sydney just
yeah,
pointed that out. Yeah, and if you look at it, like I said, as Sydney pointed out, it was uh, basically volcanic ash and soft gravel material is not compacted, which the Grand Canyon is 300 miles long, mile wide, mile high on average. And I sat down once in my geeky science days and calculated the force necessary to remove that much rock. And now we're talking right a canyon, and the amount was it was more nuclear bombs than I could count, and it would have blown out a straight line flood damage, which the Grand Canyon doesn't have. So he really blew it, I think, in comparing Mount St. Helens, because Mount St. Helens was a little more straight line because it was a catastrophic short flash flood. But yeah, it's
Yep.
apples and oranges, and both their apples and oranges are rotten in their argument.
I think it's funny because they'll say, "Well, see, this is how flooding did it," and well, what they try to do is they try to make the argument go to this place to where it's you can't say flooding didn't do it because we can't prove that these things in geology are the mechanisms, is what they say. I'm not saying that's the case. But then
Yeah.
what they forget is we have examples of floods also.
Yeah, we
and
do.
we know what that looks like.
Yes. And floods do not lay down things in nice homogeneous layers. Everything is all scrambled. I just keep asking young Earth creationists, where on the planet anywhere is the global flood layer with dinosaur bones and human bones and sloths and bears and everything that was alive at one time, supposedly? Where is that layer with all those fossils? Because by their argument, it should be there, and nobody's found it yet. Now they will tell you
Yeah.
they have found pre-flood and post-flood strata, but that flood itself should have left behind a record, and it's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, because there should be. We're finding a few fossils below. We're finding a few fossils above it. There should be a whole layer of just jumbled up fossils.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Never get an answer on that one. I think I've posted that
No.
question probably 24 times or more on Answers in Genesis Twitter feed, and I'm surprised I haven't been kicked off. I am respectful, but I still counter things they do. Not that I expect I'm going to get them to change their minds, but it is really good practice to bone up your own science background just by spending some time reviewing these false claims they make. As we saw earlier in the channel, a lot of people chimed in. Snakes don't have vocal cords, right? Yeah, it's a good way to educate yourself on some finals.
Yeah, I mean, you get there's the ones that try to argue for the anomaly. Like they'll say, well, radiometric dating is not a reliable way to measure these things because if you look at this one example of radiometric dating over here in this very odd place, in one that was given to me was if you look at it in this dug something up out of these salt flats, and I was like, that's an interesting place, and
Yeah.
but they want to point to the anomaly and then use it to discount the other 98% of findings that
Yeah.
follow the I don't know.
And if you actually talk to a geologist or read what professional geologists say, they're the first ones admitting why a certain sample wouldn't be considered, why it was considered contaminated. They're the ones who was it Piltdown Man? One of the famous frauds. It was science that actually came forward and said, oh, this is fake. This isn't real. We can explain what's wrong here. But the young Earth creationists will say, look, they were wrong. They keep changing their answers. These scientists are all wrong because they're basically admit when they're wrong. And that's something that the fundamentalists cannot do ever, is admit they're wrong.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing that I have to remind myself and sometimes others of is they can't ever admit that they got anything wrong because they claim to already have the answer to everything. And if they say that thing's wrong, they have to admit they had the wrong answer. And
Yeah.
it all
it all tumbles down because of that one declaration of answers in Genesis. You know, every verse of the Bible is true. Every single verse. You get one wrong, the whole Bible's wrong. That Ken Ham says that all the time. And boy, I'm telling you, I, as a kid, started out reading the Bible really early on. And it was Genesis 2 when I found the first errors. They got the order of creation wrong. They contradict each other in both books. And the one that really flabbergasted me was that in the second book of Genesis, Eve did not get any instructions at all about the garden. She wasn't even made yet when God gave Adam the instructions. And the animals weren't good enough company for Adam, so God made Eve. So unless Eve got some talking to by Adam earlier, she didn't even know about this whole thing. But you know, this is patriarchal religion, so we're going to blame it on the woman. It's all Eve's fault. Goodness, how we doing on time there? I know you try to keep it like an hour, and I keep talking on you.
No, you're fine. I don't really. I have shows that go an hour, hour and a half to shows that go 3 and 4 hours. We, you know, I go on as long as we're still moving along talking about things. You know, so I don't. But let's see. What have we've been going an hour and 16 now. I started late. It's 15 till 4. Why don't we try and wrap it up by 4 o'clock? That way.
That sounds good. I'm at your disposal.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mark. Yeah, there's so much of that, and I've kind of shifted a lot from arguing specifically because I get there's value in arguing these specific points and showing why they're wrong about this and why they're wrong about this. And I like to do that by all means, but also I freely admit I'm not an expert in any of these fields.
Yeah,
you know, I read things just like everybody else. So I've came to understand that it's not so much about the trying to pretend these things are on some kind of level playing field, you know, because they're not. They're just not. It's you still have to tell people, hey, that thing you were taught, you know, that I was taught as a kid too. I get it, like it's wrong, and let me tell you why. That's really important. But I've quit worrying about arguing with them, you know, the young Earth creationists and stuff themselves, because it's just like the Mary Schweitzer thing. They're just gonna, as soon as the show ends, they'll go on another show and repeat the same damn thing, you know?
Yeah. The reason I argue about this with anyone isn't necessarily to convince them, because I think that's kind of a lost cause. But the thing is, they're trying to put this out in schools. And I have a lot of young nieces and nephews that will come up and say, Uncle Mark, is it true that these marine fossils we found here were left by a big flood? And I want them to know the truth, because people are recalcitrant, is that the right word, to teach anything that might offend somebody religious-wise in school anymore. And we should know that there was no global flood. There's no evidence for it. So I try to keep up on what young Earth creationists are saying, so I can talk to the people who haven't been indoctrinated yet. They're still out there. There's still people out there sitting on the fence. Science is not everybody's favorite subject, let's be honest. So they may have not dug into this, but without a reasoned voice saying that snakes have no vocal cords, sorry to keep going back to that one, they might wonder if that could really happen, right? So I think it's good for us to be able to answer these things if they come up, because here in Kentucky in the Bible Belt, they come up more often than you'd like to admit.
Oh, for sure, for sure. It's a common thing around here, and that's why I do talk about these things. But like at the same time, it's not from a well. For example, I know that the community that you know, for the most part, it comes to watch my shows and stuff. If I came on here and was like, today, I'm gonna debunk, you know, the Noah's flood, half the audience is going to slap their face and say, "Not again."
Yeah.
And so
yeah, how many times?
yeah, like, in fact, when I noticed that whenever I go to talk about a lot of these things, and it's a great thing having the community to say, like, I'll talk about some subject, and we've got members of the community that are geologists and that are working in these fields and stuff that say, hey, be sure to mention this thing, like, I learned about Aeolian dunes and fossils during a debate, but
Yeah.
it's it's nice to have them there to do that. But at the same time, if I try to leverage my content to like be, well, I'm going to debunk all these really simple things. I have that stuff on my channel. There are things where I talk about why Ray Comfort's wrong about 10 scientific facts in the Bible, and why
Oh
the
yeah.
resurrection doesn't work, and why all these different things. I talk about all that. I do, but whenever I'm doing a live stream and stuff, talking to an audience live, it's like, okay, I have to talk to them where they're at, and that's not where they're at.
Right.
So
Yeah, this audience, I mean, it's really obvious reading the comments here about, number one, they have really great senses of humor, but they're also very well educated. So there's really no need to convince this audience about there not being a flood. So
yeah, well, one of the great things about the atheist community in general on YouTube anyway is that I mentioned all those different perspectives earlier, and so many of these people, we've all spent our time watching the Atheist Experience and Aaron Raw and
yeah.
the Dave Warnocks and all those people. We're all familiar. I've watched almost everything Aaron Raw has ever put out on YouTube. So and so many people are right there with me on that. And
Yeah.
so they're aware of a lot of the basics of these things and why. And I still make sure if we're bringing up a certain subject or whatever that I point out why this thing isn't right, and for somebody else coming along, because there's always it's always going to be, that's always going to be changing. Who
Yeah.
knows about what issue. But it's really great to be able to focus more on the community side of it some, and about who's doing what and where things are going, because the reason that the chat is so well informed is because you have a bunch of people in there who all talk to each other, and it's like, hey, did you see this great thing so and so put out yesterday?
Yeah.
And everybody goes back and forth and watches these things, and then we have other conversations about it, and it gets it makes it really easy to spread all that stuff around and talk about it a lot. So it's
Yeah.
great being able to then talk to people who are all on the same page. Like, I say all, it's not all, it's definitely not all. There are still people that we need to talk about those things with, but to have a community of people that have all watched a lot of the same stuff, so we're at that starting point. We don't have to start with, okay, this is why Adam and Eve don't make sense, and this is why the flood doesn't make sense. We don't have to start there.
Right.
And sometimes I forget that. I forget who I'm talking to. And
Well,
but
I think that community like this is really important because if you're like me, I talk about this a lot in Journey to Reason, where I had nobody around me who was a non-believer. Everybody was a believer, and not having that sense of community, it can really hold you back from making progress in your education and the way you view the world. Being among people here who are reasonable and rational and are willing to hear any opinion out, and they're not shy about telling you what they think about it, which is also a good thing. I think it's important because I've come to realize there are more people out there like me than I thought there were. So that has been one great part of this experience of, if I could use the word coming out as an atheist without being offensive. Just saying, hey, it took me a long time just to be able to say those words, because as we talked about Matt O'Hare, that was something that was sinful and evil, and you never did it. So just admitting you don't believe, that takes a lot of courage. And you find other people out there that are like you, and you feel a little less afraid to speak up. So the community is very important.
Yeah, yeah. The well, I'm failing to really explain it right, I guess. But so we do here in Kentucky have a large community of creationists, and
Yes.
young Earth creationism is a big thing. Religious fundamentalism of all different types is kind of a big thing here. It's a very red and a very religious state.
Yeah.
So in my day-to-day life, when I'm talking to people, I'm prepared that whenever I say I don't believe this thing, that I'm going to have to explain, yeah, this is why that doesn't work, and so on and so on. And I do like that we use that to then, in this community, better prepare each other for those type of conversations by talking about it. So there is that, there is a very real value to still going over those things and talking about them, so that people understand them better and can have those conversations with the ones around them. But
Yeah.
whenever I'm talking within the community to the people in the community, it's a little different, because then that's not the same starting spot, right? We can talk more about, well, how do you deal with these issues, and more of the and I hate to say emotional side of it, but I guess that's kind of what it is. Um,
It is.
we can talk more about the effects of these things than having to spend all the time going over why this isn't the case and this isn't the case. So
Yeah.
it's and I guess that's why, because you have a spectrum of people that are all at different starting points, or at different points, in their deconstruction, or have been atheists for years or whatever. You have people in all these different points, so they benefit from having a lot of different content to be able to watch, and a lot of different people to uh, different attitudes and things about putting that across. Aaron Ra
Yeah.
talks with a lot of contempt about these creationists and things, whereas Forrest Valakai has a lot of fun with it. It's a totally different approach, and it's good that we have that. So that's what I really like about doing it on YouTube, though, is that there's no matter where you're at, there's a whole group of people that are around that area to talk you through it, and to have people to speak to, and all that. And it's really great, and it's it's been really helpful to a lot of people to have YouTube,
Oh
to
yeah.
even if you're just
Yeah.
sitting and watching.
No, like I said, community is a huge part of it. I could tell you the other side that I came from has a very large community, and they're very vocal. They're getting more vocal, and they're starting to pass laws. Not starting, they have been passing laws that affect everyone in this channel. So I think we need our community too, and we need to talk, need to speak out loud, not be afraid to speak out loud. So
Mm.
there's my philosophical wisdom for the day, for what it's worth.
Yeah. Well, I hit on that I do that all the time. I end up it's hard to not end up in that spot sometimes, though, because you're like, well, I get it, and there's because it's such a big encompassing thing. If you're really gonna there's no way that one channel can cover all the crazy things that or all the wrong things that is put out there in the name of religion, or why they do it. Uh, whenever AIG's plane is making trips to the Cayman Islands and landed for a few minutes, I didn't know that. I relied on others to
Oh,
bring that to me.
yeah. And I gave you the wrong tail number the other day. I meant to correct that. It's N190JK. N190JK. And if you go back into the early part of spring, going back into December of last year. They'd fly down 3 hours, stop, land just long enough. I looked at the refueling rates on the Cessnas, just long enough to refuel, and they would fly back, and they would do this continually. I'll leave it to the audience's imagination what's going on. I know that none of the AIG people seem to have suntans, so I don't think they're going down there for vacation. What else is in Grand Cayman?
Yeah,
Kaching.
it's one of those things that, I mean, if you know a little bit about AIG and the history and things, you're like, that fits, you know. So it's granted, we don't know exactly why they are for sure, because they're never going to tell you that.
Yeah.
We do know that they didn't have any planned speeches. They weren't just they don't just go and pick people up and drop people off that often. They're not. It's they've made sure to, because here's the thing: lots of people have called them out on this thing, and if it was the case, they would just answer the question, right? They would just,
Yeah.
but they won't address it at all because they don't have to, and they know that. But whatever. Anyway,
Anyway,
let's wrap the thing up and get out of here and let everybody get to watching their Sunday. Sunday's a big day on Atheist YouTube because that's when
are there
everybody.
any NFL fans here?
Dave's your guy on that. Dave's a big NFL fan. So is Jimmy Tubbs.
I've got the Packers recording right now downstairs. But yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, another tangent, but yeah, it's a busy Sunday. I am so thankful to everybody for showing up and sticking around, and the input in the chat's has been awesome. Really appreciate it, y'all. And Joe, thanks for having me.
No, after I had you on the first time, well, I was intrigued by, the information I got about you from Jess at first. And we talked through email or whatever. And we did the show, and a lot of people were like, "Hey, that guy's great. That was really great guest. I'm glad you had him on." And yeah, there was a great response to having you on the first time. And, I've been looking for some people who can come on at least, occasionally and talk, who have experience from Kentucky, dealing with these kind of things and stuff. And, I think it's great that you have a book out there that people can find and read and better understand your point of view and things. And that really,
I love talking about it. I will jump in and say, Stephanie, it's Matthew 10:34, the Jesus with the sword verse, if that's what you were. But I'm sorry, Joe. Yeah, but thank you very much for having me. It's anytime. It's always a pleasure to come on and talk to you.
Yeah. So one more time here. Mark's book is Journey to Reason: Walking Away from Young Earth Creationism and Religious Fundamentalism. If you're interested in a copy of the book, let me know. Mark has told me that he can get a few copies for us, and so if you're interested and you want a copy of it, let me know, and we'll try to get one to you. Just a really great story of what you went through and things, and it's always, for me, it's always great to read about people who have experienced the same kind of stuff in Kentucky, because I feel like it's kind of unique. There's a lot of unique things that take place in Kentucky.
Yeah.
While still being the same thing, like that's other places. Whenever you talk, if you go, up into New England or something and talk about young Earth creationism, they're like, "What?" Like, nobody believes that. They don't even. So many people think that young Earth creationism is this this little small thing that just a handful of people believe, and that's just not the case.
That has been the number one reaction to my book from people who are not in the Bible Belt or people overseas is, did that really happen? Could that really can't happen? Yes, it can. It happens every day. It happens a lot. We're only a couple million voters. I tend to lump evangelicals into a certain political party. And if you look at it from that perspective, people who are voting for that right wing type of look, then we barely have a majority in this country. Now, I know not everybody's a young earth creationist, but there's a lot of fundamentalism out there. There's a whole lot, hell of a lot, and better not ignore that. We ignored it at our peril. So, okay, rant over.
No, you're fine. All right, so thanks everybody for coming and watching today, and thank you, Mark, for coming and talking to me again. I'm sure we'll do this again in the near future. I enjoy talking to you because this is a thing that's common to both of us, and that we can talk about various aspects of it that aren't just debunking why there is a pile of fossils.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll look forward to talking to you again. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. Well, everybody, thanks for coming. I'm sorry that I was late today. I had some stuff going on, and that's thank you to everybody that reached out to me trying to get a hold of me and find out what's going on. Sorry to make you concerned, but thanks everybody. Have a great one. See you later.
Bye-bye, everybody.